What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video on this lovely Thursday morning. We have some official coaching staff hires that we'll talk through, and the offensive coordinator hire is coming very soon. This video is powered by BetUS, the official sports book of the YouTube channel. Sign up using the promo code YouTube150 and receive a 150% match deposit bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. If you're into it, in addition to the sports book, they also have slots and casino games as well, so you can have some fun on the casino on BetUS as well. Sign up again using promo code YouTube150. Okay, so we have some official hirings as of last night. Shortly after I put out the video on the Jets interviewing Steve Wilks, we got official word that Steve Wilks will be the New York Jets defensive coordinator. And there were two more hires as well. Chris Banjo for special teams coach and Steve Hayden, I'm going to say, for offensive line coach. So we'll go through each one of these guys. We've spent a lot of time talking about Steve Wilks. He's a veteran defensive coordinator. I've talked about him a lot on the channel, but Zach Rosenblatt tweeted out some additional stats that I really haven't talked about yet. So I will share the additional info with you rather than going through and being like, he was with San Francisco in 2023 and they ranked this and this in yards and points against, because we've done that a million times. But something that you could expect with not only Aaron Glenn, but also with Steve Wilks. Like this mindset has crossed over a lot. And I think that both Glenn and Wilks share this sentiment. So expect the New York Jets to be a lot more blitz heavy in 2025. It's something they really didn't do all that much the last few years. They ranked 13th, 31st, and 31st the last 3 years in blitz rate. Now, Steve Wilks didn't blitz a ton in San Francisco, but when he was with Carolina in 2022, they were the fourth highest blitz rate team. And again, the last regime felt very adamant about getting home rushing for, but someone who immediately pops into my head as someone who could benefit from a significantly higher blitz rate is Quincy Williams. We've seen him scream into the backfield and make plays consistently throughout his Jets career. And really the player that he's become the last 2 years, he's really elevated his game. But even early on, when he first got to the Jets and, there's a little more variance to his game, one of the things that he was most successful with was getting down to the line of scrimmage and making plays behind the line. Getting him into the backfield with speed on the blitz to either A, stop the run, or B, get pressure on the quarterback, I think is only going to make him that much more dangerous. Here's some numbers that I haven't included yet when talking about Steve Wilks in his last stint with the 49ers. They ranked 8th in yards, 3rd in points against. We've talked about that, but how about EPA? They were 12th, so a top half of the league defense in most of the important categories, and the 49ers got worse in all three categories in 2024 after they moved on. Really felt like Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers scapegoated him after the 2023 season and the loss in the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs. They move on. Their defense gets worse. They fire the guy after 1 year that they replaced Steve Wilks with, and now Robert Saleh is back as the DC. All right, Chris Banjo for special teams coach. He's a young buck, 34 years old. He was an assistant the last couple of years on the special teams unit in Denver. Aaron Glenn was his defensive backs coach in New Orleans, which when, Banjo was a player in the league, I probably should have mentioned that. And maybe you understood that by his age, but they overlapped. And two of the guys that Aaron Glenn is most influenced by, Sean Payton, number 1, and Mike Westhoff, number 2, they love the guy. He was on Mike Westhoff's staff in Denver, which, that's where he spent, each of the last 2 years. And Sean Payton spent each of the last 2 years in Denver. And Darren Muji comes from Denver. So there's that connection from the Jets and the Broncos with the general manager and with Sean Payton and Westhoff. And they rave about the guy. And I'm excited about what he can do as a full-time special teams coordinator. Here's an interesting stat for you. The Broncos down the league high 5 punts at the 1 yard line in 2024, including in the playoffs. And Banjo did a lot of work with the outside guys on the punt team. So clearly, I think he's qualified. The Broncos special teams units ranked 11th in EPA over the last 2 years, with Banjo a part of Sean Payton's staff. So this next one's a little interesting. Steve Hyden for the offensive line coach. And why it's interesting is because he spent most of his coaching career as a tight ends coach. The last 2 years with the Detroit Lions, he was the Arizona Cardinals tight end coach for the 4 years prior. He was an assistant offensive line coach in Arizona in 2018. But when you look at the Detroit Lions, their tight ends generally did a really good job blocking, and there absolutely is some crossover between offensive line and tight end coaching in the blocking game. So while it's a little bit unconventional, I have some confidence that it could work out. And something else that I just think is super, super important is he has spent significant time around Hank Fraley, who is the offensive line coach in Detroit and one of the better offensive line coaches in the NFL. And as we're all well aware of, the Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the league. So poaching from that staff, I think, makes a ton of sense. And it makes even more sense when you realize they're going to bring in someone else from Detroit, the offensive coordinator, which means we're really at this point just waiting on the official word of Tanner Engstrand. I would not be surprised if we hear either later today or maybe over the weekend that the Jets make it official with Tanner Engstrand, but they're picking an offensive line coach over from Detroit. And to me, it feels like it's a matter of when, not if. Just like with the Aaron Glenn news, we kind of knew that, the Jets wanted to go that direction for a few days. And then we get the official word a little bit later on. And I think that's where we're at right now with Tanner Engstrand. Maybe, who knows, maybe Nick Caley's still in the race. I really think in all likelihood, I could see him ending up in Tampa Bay, where he's already officially interviewed. And I'm excited about Tanner Engstrand. I played in a video either yesterday or the day before some insight from Tanner Engstrand speaking, Dan Campbell's words on Tanner Engstrand. I think it would be a really interesting hire, and especially if they pair him with or add some veteran offensive coaches to the staff. For instance, another name we've discussed a lot, Todd Haley on the staff, as someone who was a wide receiver coach here with the Jets in the late 90s, early 2000s, spent time as a coordinator, was a head coach in Kansas City. He's nuts, but in a good way. He's very intense, and I think that fits the mold that Aaron Glenn is going for. So again, I think it's a matter of when, not if, on Tanner Engstrand. But let me know what you think about these hires down below in the comments. I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring, and we'll catch you next time.